Welcome everyone to today's FP webinar on cybersecurity, a very pertinent and timely issue. And with us today is Daniel Pinkley, one of our infrastructure engineers, who will be able to shed some light on this very timely topic today. And before we get started, I wanted to just run through a couple of things to remind you to submit questions at any time. And we'll answer as many as we can at the end, but go ahead and get those queued up for us so we can dive right into those questions at the end of this presentation. And thirdly, we are giving away a $50 Amazon gift card today to one lucky participant. So let's jump right in. Dan, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
One of the things I wanted to ask you right off the bat are, what are the three top cyber threats to businesses right now?
It's a really good question. So I want to start with ransomware. So ransomware is one of the fastest growing types of malware out there right now. Basically what it does is once it infects your system, it encrypts all of your file system, all of your data, and they state that the only way you can get that back is by, paying the piper, if you will. Usually there is some method of communication, whether it's an image on your desktop that they've left there, or if you track it down in the file system, you'll find something that says, to retrieve your data, you have to send, your ransom to this email address, and it's usually some sort of predetermined Bitcoin. Anywhere from about $5,000 to $20,000 is the average. And like I said, it's the fastest growing. To put that in perspective, in the first quarter of 2016, over $209 million was reported and being spent to retrieve data from ransomware attacks. That is in comparison to the $325 million paid out in the entirety of 2015. So that number is pretty staggering, that if we have one quarter almost as much as an entire year, shows you how fast this is rising. The FBI is reporting that they would expect this to be $1 billion industry, this ransomware industry, by the end of 2016, and that's a pretty frightening number. So the other one I want to talk about is your Wi-Fi hotspots. So these could be at any local coffee shops, hotels, anything like that where there's free Wi-Fi. Sometimes you get a splash page that requires your email address to enter. These are pretty susceptible to man-in-the-middle type attacks. So anybody could be sitting there watching the traffic along this free connection, and if you're not secured properly, they can easily see a lot of your data, your passwords, usernames, and anything just run right across their screen in clear text. And the scary part is it's not a very difficult thing for people to set up. You can buy these devices that are already configured to run this traffic, to do these things, and it just runs right across their screen. You don't need a whole lot of intelligence in security or network traffic to be able to get this stuff. That rolls me into the next one, which is mobile devices. So mobile devices, yes, they can be secure if you're running them the right way, but it takes a lot of your personal intervention to keep these secure. Mostly with your Android operating systems and your open source type operating systems. The reason I say Android is because the security is not actually owned by one single entity. It's owned by, what phone provider you have as far as, the actual physical device, Samsung, HTC, those types of devices. It's also the physical intervention of you're downloading open source apps. There's no one that says that anybody can't develop some sort of application for free download on your phone. You just have to be aware of the warnings, and you have to do those, take those extra steps to keep yourself safe. That's why it's pretty recommended to not run, secure data and things like that through your mobile device. You want to use something with a better operating system like a Windows or the Mac OS type operating systems.
So, Dan, if I'm hearing you right, there's some vulnerability there between your mobile device as well as a public Wi-Fi for your personal vulnerability. But does that mean that then you make your business vulnerable as well?
Yeah, that's exactly what that means. You want to treat your business data the same way you would want to keep your personal data secure. The same measures you would want to take for your personal, keeping your personal identity secure. You would want to take those same measures to keep, sensitive data that you have with your business secure. You know, that could be, you know, making sure passwords are updated and changed consistently. Simple things like that, all the way up to not accessing, things like for personal banking information on these free Wi-Fi hotspots. You wouldn't want to access, a secure database from an unsecure mobile device from these Wi-Fi hotspots.
Gotcha. Okay. You know, cyber attacks are becoming increasingly complex, and data breaches are becoming more prevalent. Um, what's the what's the face of the hacker looking like now as we talk about the attacks becoming more complex?
Yeah, so for years, a lot of these different types of hacks and exposures were done by, just your random anybody on the street type person. Now these are turning more into, you know, highly trained professionals, people with PhDs, sitting in these think tank rooms and just running these servers to specifically exploit, and they know exactly what they're looking for. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're writing really sophisticated code to be able to break into these systems. They're writing more sophisticated malware. You know, all of these things are becoming more and more sophisticated, so it makes it more and more difficult for us to stay on top of all these, without the right types of intervention.
As you look at this slide, you see how much the breaches have grown in terms of users affected. Case in point, the most recent media story about Yahoo.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us, what have you learned from those data breaches?
So from looking at data breaches like this, we wanted to figure out a way to be more proactive in the way we do actually learn. A lot of this stuff here is reactive data. We wanted to gather some more proactive data. So we set out these what we call honeypots. They're unsecured devices, but that lets us monitor and grab these massive amounts of data on how these bad actors are trying to access our systems. We let certain things get compromised, so that way we can see how it's maturing, how it's growing, how it's changing. So that way we can kind of be a little more proactive on the front end of things instead of just reactive. You have to have, it's the same, saying the best defense is an offense. You have to be offensive in these things, and this is one way that we like to stay on the offensive. So, it's all about a combination of your prevention tools, your offsite backups, and most importantly, your qualified people. You're going to need that talent to be able to manage and learn from these things.
Okay. So if you look at the talent shortage for qualified people, like you said, as being one of the three things that goes into a good, defense combination, the shortage today, not the number of jobs available, but the shortage in cybersecurity talent is 500,000. And that shortage will reach 1.5 million by 2020. That's a telling statistic when you think about, you could have all the tools, you could even have your backup, system all set, but do you have the qualified people?
Yeah, if you don't have the right knowledge and the right talent to be able to put those, physical technological tools together, you're going to leave holes. You're going to have gaps. You have to have the right minds in place to be able to tell these, compute type devices what to do, what to look for, what types of logs they need to be parsing at all times, what types of monitoring they need to have in place. There is manual intervention that is needed for these devices, so having the right talent is extremely key.
So if you wanted to improve your security posture and protect your brand, I'm talking about for your business, what are some of the things that you need?
It's a good question. So one of the biggest things is your disaster recovery. That's going to be your fail-safe. That's your plan B to be able to combat everything from outages to human error, natural disaster, anything like that. This isn't going to help with just, say you get compromised. Yeah, you can roll back to be before you got compromised. This is going to help for every other thing that can impact your systems. You know, like I said, human error. Sometimes things get deleted. Sometimes, you know, mistakes are made. This is going to help combat that. This is going to help the things that are just absolutely completely out of the control of, you know, any human being, like a natural disaster. You know, it's also going to help protect your infrastructure with, you know, a business continuity plan that, you know, incorporates the disaster recovery and adds the layers of redundancy to safeguard your data and your business. You know, offsite recovery data centers, those really help too. You know, you have your main data center where you're running everything. Say a natural disaster or something strikes, or, you know, you just have an outage there. You need to have your data somewhere else as well to maintain that extra layer of data integrity, redundancy, if you will. You know, you can set those up to not only house just your data, your backups. You can set those up to hold, you know, like cold storage systems for, you know, actually spinning up a new virtual machine. You can have warm systems to where, you know, those are available within minutes or hours with minimal intervention, or you can have hot to where as soon as there's an issue, it's failed over, it's up and running. Sometimes you don't even realize that you've actually failed over to these systems. So having that multi-data center redundancy falls into this this plan as well.
That's a good point, especially when you're talking about natural disasters. You look at some data by AVCO that says that 20% of companies will suffer from fire, flood, power failure, terrorism, or hardware disasters. 20%. And of those without a disaster recovery plan, 80% that experience a significant data loss are likely to go out of business within 1 month. And 43% of businesses that are not able to resume operations within 10 days of a disaster will never reopen.
Yeah, that's why it's extremely important to have these, you know, disaster recovery plans in place. Like I said, they could be backups, they could be other virtual machine systems, you know, depending on how you want to set up. There's a multitude of ways. Just have to figure out what's best for you and your company with the resources you have at hand. So, you know, your business continuity plan is your company strategy for how you will continue operations after one of these major incidents hit. You know, it can include, you know, recovery point objective, which is going to be, you know, maximum period of time your IT can be without data that has been lost, or your recovery time objective, which is the maximum period of time it takes for your organization to recover the services necessary to resume business. So the other thing that falls nicely into disaster recovery is cloud backup. You know, these are being leveraged more and more nowadays with people not wanting to keep their services, you know, on premise. You know, they want to go to these cloud providers, and there are several different ways that you can do that. You know, you can back up your data. We offer cloud backup services here at Fpweb, AWS, Azure, any of the cloud providers will offer that. You know, and with Office 365, a lot of people are wanting to move more towards that cloud offering. And the downside with Office 365 is it does lack the essential ability to recover documents once they've been removed from the trash. So retention period is only about 14 days, and you must restore the entire site's 2-week setback. Whereas Fpweb.net, we can protect all of your data with automated daily backups, and we can increase your data retention period to basically as long as you would like. You know, it's all about just having the right amount of storage, and we can set those thresholds for whenever. So that definitely helps protect against the Office 365 data loss with the off-cloud backup. You know, like I said, we can set the longer retention periods for those bigger safety nets to recover from, you know, cyber attacks, natural disasters, anything like that. You can restore data right away, get everyone right back to work. You know, and with these cloud services, you know, your data and applications are everywhere. Servers, clients, clouds, managed backup service. These managed backup services protect your critical applications and your files, folders, servers, clients, and infrastructure as a service, you know, and virtual machines. So, you know, with these backups, disaster recovery, and everything, that's, like I said, that's going to be your plan B, your fail-safe.
Okay.
So the next thing I would like to bring up is secure VDI. Now, we did already have a webinar on this back in July. we can get you that information so you can view it. I think you have the link.
It's right, and it's also available on our YouTube channel as well as Fpweb.net/webinars, which is where we archive all of these webinars that we do, including today's.
Yeah, perfect. So like I said, I'm just going to touch on this briefly since we already did have a webinar on it. But so Secure VDI, it's a hosted desktop operating system within a virtual machine. So, that's going to be running in our data center, your data center, wherever, but it's going to be a secure virtual machine. It's going to allow for secure remote computing with accessibility and ease of use. Just like if your personal laptop was tucked away safely in a data center. It's going to significantly mitigate security risk by being 100% contained within inside that network. It's going to work on any device, and all the traffic is encrypted, which is extremely key nowadays. There's no data cached to the physical or local machine that's accessing this remote desktop. There's simple and effective service for regulated or sensitive data with full audit capacity. The information that's going to be stored during the active sessions is 100% deleted upon logging out of the user session, which can be enforced by local security policies, group policies, on the server or Active Directory, however you have those set up. You can force user logon time offs. You get a dedicated desktop profile, secure local access to the hosted application. Your IT has more control over what apps users can and can't install. Access, you can set up your content filters to run across all of these. There's quite a bit of great perks to having those, and it cuts down on the overhead of having to actually purchase, physical machines for your workforce. You can truly embrace the bring your own device or BYOD type environments. So.
Okay. That sounds like a great solution for a remote workforce, especially dealing with sensitive data.
Yeah. So the next thing we want to bring up will be your endpoint protection. So endpoint protection can be a multitude of things. Sometimes it's just software that you're going to install on, whatever device, whether it's your virtual machine, your physical servers, whatever you're trying to access is where you're going to have your endpoint protection. So like I said, sometimes it's software, or sometimes it's a dedicated appliance. These dedicated appliances can be running, your entire cloud workforce's endpoint protection. Everything is filtered through that. It's actually scanning all the environments, but it's an actual physical dedicated appliance. Like I said, it's going to scan and monitor your environment, and you want to make sure that you have endpoint protection that's constantly being updated with the latest malware and virus definitions, so you can stay on top of the game. Like I said, these guys are becoming extremely sophisticated, and they're constantly changing. They're updating their game. They understand that, on the defensive side, yeah, we're learning. We're getting more caught up. We're catching up, but they're doing the same things. They're constantly growing and changing the way that they're trying to access us. So you need to make sure that that's the case with your endpoint protection. So depending on the environment, like I said, these can be running, on a server itself or on a gateway server. And one of the benefits is these are really going to help protect against your zero-day threats. You have your IPS and firewalls that block your malware as it travels over the network before it arrives on your system. And then also, if something happens and it gets through, you have these endpoint protections that are going to be scanning and monitoring for when those things do slip through the cracks. It's going to be able to identify and mitigate those before you even realize it. Last year alone, we saw about 317 million new malware variants, which is an extremely large number. These all had targeted attacks. Zero-day threats were at an all-time high. Endpoint protection is designed to protect against these advanced threats with powerful layered protection backed by industry-leading security intelligence.
So those have been some of the tools that we could deploy or that people could use. Is there a way to combine those tools with the security experts package, so to speak?
Definitely. Here at Fpweb, we do something that we call Cyber Shield. This is going to be your enterprise grade security tools all wrapped up into one with the industry's top counterintelligence experts. Delivering this as an affordable service, an effective cyber protection for your entire network. And again, talking about the lack of, experts in the field, we are able to use our experts and manage these 24/7, 365, which is extremely key. The Shield, it's easy to set up. We've already got everything running on our side. Need barely any information from, these on-premise places, and with a few DNS changes and things like that, these things are up and running and protecting immediately. Vendor agnostic, doesn't matter what hardware, what software you're using, it protects, period. It's going to protect you from DDoS attacks. We have next-gen firewalls, advanced malware protection. We have the IPS and IDS devices in place, DLP, anomaly alerting, and log analysis. So you're going to be getting quite the suite here with all these, coupled with the personnel to make sure it's running properly and protecting at optimal levels.
Okay.
So the other thing that we were able to offer, if you want to take that next step in protecting your data, is to not have your data on your premise. We actually offer a cloud vault. That's going to take everything that I talked about in the Shield.
Okay.
And then it's going to encrypt all of your data. We have incredible blazing fast IOPS speeds, unparalleled speed of threat detection. We offer less than 24 hours in the threat detection, whereas a lot of these industry standards are about 7 months.
Did you say 7 months?
7 months. That's the industry standard currently. Yeah, things are changing, but there's nobody out there who's going to offer you that 24-hour threat detection. We have countermeasures to trap attackers, mitigate damage, while the counterintelligence teams, they're responding immediately to these threats. So, one of the things that we do to constantly stay on top of the game, yeah, we do our honeypots like we said earlier, but we're also doing penetration testing. This can be offered as a service to where we can just give you, the information, say, hey, we did a penetration test in your environment. Here's where we found these holes. And you can take that information and you can do what you want with it. But in our environments here that we host, we're doing these penetration tests all the time. We're constantly taking the newest cyber technologies and trying loopholes in our systems. We've got a team of ethical hackers that are constantly doing this, exploiting our systems, and trying to identify vulnerabilities. They're running arrays of both automated scanning and manual hacking tools. These are often referred to as dynamic and static analysis tools. And these are going to be the same types of systems that the bad acting hackers, the unethical hackers are going to be using. So we're doing the same things, and then if we do find loopholes and exploits, we're stopping those immediately. We're plugging those up. Nothing gets in. We're constantly generating reports, parsing logs, reading all this. So.
Well, that is a very encompassing picture of both tools and a combination of those tools with the counterintelligence experts. I appreciate you running through those with us. I just want to kind of summarize that Fpweb.net monitor and protect and secure your company and its data from cyber attacks by combining the industry's strongest team of counterintelligence experts with the industry's strongest technology.
Yeah, I'd like to just reiterate, it's not just about you having the right tools or you having your disaster recovery plans or just the personnel. It's going to take a combination of the three of those to really be the top of the game and be as secure as you possibly can.
That's a good point. For more information, we'd encourage you to go to fpweb.net/cyber-security. or you can reach out to us at sales@fpweb.net, or you can call us 866-780-4678. We'll leave that contact information up on the screen while we dive into some questions here. And looks like we've got a nice little pile of questions going. Here's a good one. What's the difference, Dan, between the Cyber Shield and the Cloud Vault?
Good question. So the Cyber Vault is the deluxe model of the Cyber Shield. So we're not just doing the monitoring of your traffic and the endpoint protection and things like that. We're actually managing the secure storage as well. We're actually holding on, we're the stewards of the data. We're holding on to all of your storage, your security, everything from, start to finish. All those bits and bytes are on our premise, and they're our responsibility to maintain and keep safe.
Okay, good point. Going back to your point about the mobile devices vulnerability, we got a question here that says, are Apple iPhones as vulnerable as Android phones? That's a good point of clarification, I think.
Correct, yeah. Most testing says that they are more secure, and that touches back to the fact that, Apple is in charge of all of their security. It's running on one device, that operating system. They're in charge of what gets put into, the application stores, what you can download, what they deem as safe and secure for their hardware and software. So they're going to be a bit more secure in that realm in the mobile world.
Is there a point where you recommend paying the ransomware demands?
Absolutely not. You never want to pay the ransomware demands, because when we're paying these ransomware demands, that's only funding them for them to be able to do more R&D on these, malware definitions and up their game, which in turn is just going to require us to up our game, and it's not going to leave you in any better spot moving forward. The less money we can give them, the better.
Okay. There's a question here that says, it's about the honeypots that you've used to gain so much knowledge on this. How do you know, I just lost my place, with honeypots, how do we guarantee that those are not the gap points for hacker attacks?
I want to make sure I understand this correctly. I would say these are not the gap point, because these are on completely separate networks from our stuff. In that perspective, they're going to be completely separated from anything that we would ever host that would be sensitive here. Those are just thrown out in completely separate environments, with different patch levels, different systems running on them. Those are strictly for monitoring purposes and learning. A lot of the top, companies out there, like the Semantics and the Kaspersky's and things, they're all doing the same things with the honeypot type stuff. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so.
So here's one that says,